We are at Malham Cove in the Yorkshire Dales, which is this really incredible cliff, inland cliff. It's not a cove like a seashore cove, but it's a cove shape in the middle of the Yorkshire Dales, and it's a really incredible feature. The current shape of Malham Cove comes from the interaction of a few different geological events. So it sits on a fault called the Craven Fault, and during glacial periods, the rock on this side of the fault was eroded away, and so it left this really sheer cliff. And then the second thing that happened was this glacier that was sat on top of it, that was sort of carving out the landscape. As it receded, it started melting and formed this huge river which would have gushed down here. Malham Cove would have been just an enormous waterfall. And that's what's carved it into this kind of rounded shape, all of this water just pouring down over millions of years. So I remember first coming to Malham when I was a wee lad. And there's this little photograph of me standing on top of Malham Cove on the limestone pavement. So that was my first experience. And then I came back here again in my 20s during my undergraduate degree, and I did a field course up at the Malham Tarn Field Centre. I wasn't much of a climber then, but I remember walking up and seeing this and thinking, yeah, I should really get into climbing. And when I was there, when I was a kid, we actually saw climbers up here, so I've always felt drawn back here. Yeah, I love it. It's such an incredible place.
I first came here having heard a lot about it, and when I saw it I did not expect it to be this grand. I heard it's a great crag, but just the magnitude and the scale of it is absolutely crazy. So the routes that I can do, they're relatively short, but there's some absolutely mega lines, spanning from the catwalk all the way to the top. So there's some incredible climbing, and the quality of the rock is so good. There's so few crags where you get holds that intricate and that interesting with a lot of undercuts and side pulls. It's very specific and it takes some getting used to. So initially you find that you can't move on this rock. You're not cranking down on small edges. You have to find shapes that work. So it's really challenging and it's really fun. And it's just a great place to be because you sat there and you're looking, into the valley, and you just get to spend time in an absolutely stunning place.
How hard is climbing at Malham?
Pretty hard.
Yeah.
There's some incredibly hard routes that have been developed. The first 8B is here, and then obviously Steve McClure's done 9A and a 9B. It's a crag that draws people in, and it's like the test piece of British climbing. It's the routes here that everybody wants to do. So in terms of any climber's career, if they can get their first 9A at Malham, it's always, Rain Shadow is, for so many people, been the first 9A because it's just absolutely iconic route that has all the variety. It's long, it's had a hard crux, it's epic, it's quite phenomenal.
It's a great place to visit, and loads of people come here for loads of different reasons. You have peregrines nesting up there, so you have people coming to watch the birds. You've got people just coming to see the beauty of nature, and you've got people sort of running through. On top of Malham Cove, there's another amazing geological feature, which is a limestone pavement, which is just like a mad moonscape of bare rock. And this was formed when the glacier that once sat on here kind of moved along it, scouring off all of the surface rock, revealing the limestone underneath. And when it was revealed to the elements, to the rain falling, and as the water fell on it, it slowly started to dissolve it, and it dissolved it into these big cracks, which are called grikes, and these little tables where it hasn't dissolved called clints. Incredible environment. And inside the grikes, you get all of these beautiful ferns growing, and this really kind of neat little community that's really specialised to living in this sort of environment. I really love running through this landscape. It's just so picturesque, and the terrain is so interesting to run on. Yeah, it's just brilliant. This is Gordale Scar. You can see there's this massive torrent of water raging down it. And the processes that are acting here are exactly the same processes that are acting on top of the limestone pavement to carve out all of those grikes, those little narrow cracks. It's exactly the same thing here, but on a massive scale, with the water just charging down, slowly dissolving the carbonate rocks and creating these massive cliff faces, this huge gorge. It's amazing. Right at the back of Gordale Scar, where the river is coming down, you can see there's all of this moss growing in there, and this is a moss that eventually turns into tufa, like the same stuff that you're climbing on when you go to Kalymnos. And what you can see here is that actual process happening. So all of these different layers, once upon a time, was a layer of moss growing on rock, which then became calcified as the calcium carbonate collected in it. And then that turned into rock itself. Then another layer of moss grew on top of that. That calcified, turned to rock, and the same process kept happening. So you get these layers of sort of lithified moss just building up until you get these really huge structures over millions of years. But it's quite soft. Right? It's not really well consolidated rock, so it does wear through quite quickly.
The scenery is incredible. You sit on the catwalk between your climbs and you can just take in the view, and you see the light change, you see clouds roll in, and you get so many different experiences depending which time of the year you come.
That's kind of what this project is about. It's about those links between climbing and the natural world, and just starting to explore that relationship a little bit more.